Okay, hello everyone. Thanks very much for coming along to this last session of MIPTV. For those of you who haven't been before, the idea is to wrap up the key trends of MIPTV and MIPCube and MIP formats and MIPDoc in an hour, so that you can go home with a good idea of the key trends in case you missed any sessions, or in case you need a bit more food for thought before you go home. The principle of this panel is to get people without agendas or with as little agendas as possible to give you as objective viewpoints as possible. So here we've got to my right Omri Marcus from Red Arrow Entertainment, format developer from Israel. Lisa Gray here from the Feds in Australia, who you may recognize as the winner of the MIP Formats pitch competition. I didn't know she was going to win when I picked her as a panelist, but there you go, they said that was a nice result. Angela Natividad, who is a brand strategist, works for a social TV company called Darewin, and is also one of our amazing MIP bloggers. So she's had her finger on the pulse of everything that's been going on here this week. And Marianne Halford, who's joined us, a consultant from
FTI Consulting.
Thank you, Marianne.
The consulting firm you may have never heard of.
The initials escaped me. But Marianne is specialized in helping companies to make the jump into digital. So we've tried to get quite as broad a panel as we can to give you as interesting an hour as we can. So what we like to do is ask each panelist to come along with an image that resumes their key trend, and then we'll have a chat about that. So Omri, your image.
Yeah, I guess it's the first time ever that you see that image. I wasn't sure. This is the purpose was to show a selfie, a good image of selfie, and that was the one with the decent one, because the rest of the selfies that when you are writing on a selfie on Google, you are getting completely different pictures, mainly of naked people. But the goal was different. The reason why I picked that picture is because I kind of spotted a trend, and this market, it's the selfie formats. I saw around 5 or 6 TV shows that had selfie component, or even in its title, the word selfie. And the reason why I'm showing that, it's not just because I think the selfie is the next big thing of television, but it shows something about development people that are always looking for the zeitgeist, then automatically translate it into a TV format. Related, non-related, the stories that they are telling is compelling, non-compelling. It's some kind of a very bad creativity, lazy creativity, and we get to see more and more of that over the last few years. I mean, it was the year of Facebook, so we had 20 formats of Facebook without understanding that your social media is none of my concern, etc. And then there was another year of the Instagram year that we all had a lot of shows that had Instagram in them without understanding that the basic logic of this generation is a call for a narcissistic approach. Never mind, I'm just saying that Instagram is just one way of those technologies are not just technologies, they are a story behind them. And most of the developments need some time to digest why this selfie became a trend. And it takes at least a year till a good, decent format really know how to make the transition between a hype or a zeitgeist word into an actual solid story for a TV show that can last more than one episode. Honestly, I feel like it was meant, those shows were meant for drunk acquisition people. So they will say, oh, I got the hottest commodity in the market. It's the word that all the young people are talking about. It's really like my grandmother talking about something she read about in the newspaper. But the other reason that I was picking that picture is because selfies and technology in general, and this is the plus side, are no longer a kind of a scary thing for the commissioning editors. It used to be, technologies are used to be like as appealing as an STD for commissioning editors. It was like technology, oh no, our audience is too old for that. And now I think there are more openness to shows that are based on technology.
That was the case of one of the biggest buzz formats this market, which was the shower, which seemed to be a bit inspired from Rising Star because there's an interactive element with an app.
Yeah.
Except this time the app is to turn the shower down if you don't like the person singing.
Yeah. I'm surprising that he's just singing and not cooking while he's in the shower, because that would be a perfect combination, yeah. And maybe it's new for French people, the shower element, but it's the rest of the world knows it. I'm joking.
No, but my point is that sometimes some formats are using technology trends for their own sake. Yeah. Some are integrating it better than others. Maybe there was one format you saw this week which really got the right balance.
Well, I'm just saying, the bottom line of what I'm trying to say is that it's all about the story. And the technology is an element to push a story ahead and to tell new stories. And if you are just using technology for the sake of having technology, it's doomed to flop. And we see that example over and over and over again in this market.
But do you have a counterexample of a good integration of technology in a format, or has Rising Star done it?
I think Rising Star, actually, it's a good example of understanding, and I think we're going to hear about it later because of the engaging element. This show made people be more engaged with television in a new way. I'm not discussing if it's a good or a bad format, or if it's lasting an interesting story, or how innovative this is, because that was a different discussion. But I think it was made by people that actually understand technology in the most profound way. So this is, I think, a good example for that.
They had a case study the other day which was saying that the development of the app for Rising Star is just as onerous as actually developing the program. They had to set up an app factory or something. It's just...
Yeah, Keshet are very good with branding stuff. So the app factory, I think it sounds like them. But the screens, people did a tremendous work, and I think the screens is the name of the company that did it. Tremendous work, and the Keshet with the packaging, I have a lot of criticism about other stuff, and I know that there is a lot of discussion about Keshet stuff, but the product itself, it's a decent product.
So the technological aspect, the sort of opening up, the multi-platform aspect, that's something I think you wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
Lisa?
I think one of the things I really enjoyed about seeing at this MIP, and this is not like, this is a picture we've been seeing for years and years, but I think finally multi-platform components of a TV format are an absolute. You have to go there. You can't just come up with a TV format that's just going to be on one screen. You have to have engagement considered right from the beginning. And like what we were talking about before, it was really great to see the interactivity of the audience right at the core of an idea. There were some really, really great formats that were presented on Sunday that just showed you how you could invest in a business that was being pitched at a TV show straight away, or even Rising Star. That's such a great way of getting people to come back to watching television every single week for their chance to see their face and contribute to a person's personal success story. So for years we've been coming up with ideas and for multi-platform entertainment, and quite often we're having to talk to the digital part of the network and then talk to the broadcaster, but these conversations and these ideas are truly becoming integrated, and that's really, really exciting.
So you think that was a key factor in you winning MIP formats?
Oh yeah. And the red lipstick, no. Absolutely. Just one of the many things we love to do at the Feds is just look at how TV is being made and work out how we can do it differently. And that's why we decided to go down a path of doing a reality TV show about a fantasy situation, because that's as exciting for us as I think it's going to be exciting for people to watch. You know, especially you walk around the corridors here and there's so much reality television about losing weight or finding love or, you know, getting the ultimate job. But we thought, wouldn't it be fun to see how the immersive entertainment experience of going into a world that's a fantasy world?
There was a great example of that as well at MIPDoc with Fort McMoney, which is a game about ecology which was developed because people had got sick of green issues and green documentaries, so they made a game instead, basically. There seems to be a lot more openness to that sort of thing right now.
Absolutely, and even at the Kids Summit, a lot of the discussion was about, you know, the educating side of television, really bringing that gaming component to make the entertainment more engaging, but also for children to kind of, you know, immerse themselves in it and learn something from it, which was, you know, it was really interesting. I mean, I really love the Utopia multi-platform strategy. I thought, like we were talking about technology for technology's sake, we can't do that anymore. I mean, you know, I love the fact that you get a passport and you have to justify, you know, your utopian state. And I thought it was a really great way of being a part of the program and to be a part of the journey of what these people on television were going through.
That's Utopia, the reality show, not the fiction.
No. Yeah, the reality show, yeah.
Okay, great. So that's why you chose that image, because you've got the whole family just...
I think it's here. I think we've been talking about it for a while, the opportunities of multi-platform. I saw a couple of second screen examples where you didn't have to choose between one screen or the other. You actually had to have the full experience there, and you were playing along with the game show that was going on TV. Like, you know, I think, you know, that's always been, you know, it's always hard to have opportunities of content coming from different platforms and working out which one we're going to choose. That was the downside, I think, to multi-platform. But now we're seeing fully integrated experiences, which is really, really exciting.
Maybe sometime in the future won't really matter which screen is first, which screen is second.
That's right.
Just take your pick.
Yeah, and also that you can, you know, you still have the opportunity to engage yourself in the entertainment experience at the level that you want. So it's not, you don't have to be someone that totally, you know, needs every single platform there and needs to, you know, be entertained. You can still, you know, it's still, yeah, just the experience is going. Like there was a Choose Your Own Adventure app that Interlude showed at the Kids Screen Summit that was really seamless. Like you chose what direction the characters on the video were going, but it didn't stop the content. It just continued, and that was really, really cool.
That's Yoni Block's company, who they've been innovating in interactive videos for a while now. Yeah, absolutely.
Another Israeli company.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No, that's a good point. That was another key highlight of this market, was all this innovation, and it's technological and format innovation coming out of Israel.
The Jews are ruling the media. This is why we are making people believe. Now, there is a lot of innovation coming out of Israel. And Interlude is a great example. They are doing very good stuff, especially in the basic, profound understanding that you can stop the content and you need to make the decision in a way that will be integral for the scripted side. It's very interesting. I really like that picture because I must say, I saw this picture of the old family, an old picture of a family sitting around a radio, and it was like they are just waiting for it to become television. And now those things that, I mean, everybody's got its own screen, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, when I grew up in the 80s, I had only one, and I count only here, what, 6, 7 screens?
So when they had radio, they were waiting for TV, and now they've got TV, they're looking at other screens instead.
Yeah, so I wonder what would be next.
You mentioned engagement, Lisa.
Yes.
It's been a big theme, super important, especially with the new MIP digital fronts that we've had here since yesterday. And it's your theme, is it not, Angela? Why did you pick this picture?
So this is Joan of Arc.
Okay.
Yesterday during the digital formats, during the YouTube segment, the guy from Vsauce was, he made this very nice distinction between audience and fans. Audience are just these people. You can get a lot of audience on YouTube, was the point he was making, but audiences are just these, they're figures, they're figurants. You just count them. They're not really people. They come and they go. And fans are, they come from the Latin root fanaticus, which means touched by God. Like, these are people that are very passionate about you. They really care about you. They want to talk about you to their friends. They'll go to war for you. And the reason why I chose this picture was because the thing that makes me excited about being at this market this year is because I think that television is finally starting to make that distinction in social between sheer numbers, like I want to have 100,000 fans on Facebook by next month. It doesn't matter who they are or what they do. I just need that figure to justify my job. To well, what is that? What are those people actually doing? What is that engagement actually amounting to? And you could see this in the kinds of discussions that people were having on stage. For example, Alterman from Comedy Central Comedy Central is really well known, for example, for picking up sort of subversive web series online and then pulling it onto broadcast television, like Drunk History or like more recently Broad City. And Alterman said people often make the mistake of confusing really high figures online and thinking that that's going to make a good TV show. But a good TV show is actually about your capacity to develop and to carry a story about that art. And not everyone can do that. You can't do it with cat pictures, even though you can share a cat picture like 10 million times. And going back to your point about the integration of technology, I think in the past couple of years there was a tendency to sort of tack social media or tack social and engagement technology onto the back end of a show, like just to say that they did it and just to be like, okay, we did it, but it didn't work. And the commissioner from CBC, Commissioner Detman, earlier this week was saying, now if you want to be commissioned, you can't just come with an idea. You need to come with a comprehensive social strategy from the very beginning. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, in order to get paid for your idea, you already need to have that DNA of social and engagement built into your product. And another reason why that's interesting is because you don't just get engagement built into your product. Another thing that you get is this perpetual feedback loop. Once you open to that, you have to open to people correcting your errors or suggesting that you go in another direction, and you're actually able to optimize a lot more quickly. And I think going back to this idea about making a distinction between numbers and between engagement, I think we've really gone to a place where it's not about viewership anymore, it's about relevance. And you see that in sort of the revolutionary language of Vice and these new news shows like The Young Turks, and also in the way that Comedy Central is picking up these subversive formats. It's become a competition to see who can best reflect this new world of, we like to say millennials, like they're these snotty teenagers still, but actually I'm kind of like the front end of the millennial generation. They're the new adults, and they have very specific ideas about how the world should operate and what kind of input they should have in the entertainment that's being shoved at them all the time. And yeah, that's what my picture is about.
And these millennials demand to be listened to as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
they demand to be listened to. And it's not even just that. When you're asking them for something like passion is really valuable human capital. And there are so many things competing for people's time, competing for their engagement is commitment. And in order to offer your commitment, you need to give something of yourself. There was something that I thought was so interesting yesterday. There was this conversation happening between Orangina and Group M about branded content. And Orangina was showing off all this great branded content that it had produced online and on television. And the Group M guy just got really hard-lined. He was like, no, but in the end, it's about relevance to the bottom line. Like, we have to know exactly what your objective is, producers, before like we make branded content about this, because it's like marketing and we need objectives. And the Orangina girl, the advertiser, was like, no, stop. You have to incorporate a human story. You have to incorporate a tangible human aspect, because if it's all marketing, it's flat. You have to dare, you have to try. And I thought that was really interesting, the fact that she understood that that's what's crucial to entertainment. Even if you're doing branded entertainment, there's this aspect of I have to give something, I have to give a human story. And part of giving a human story is demonstrating sort of the humanity in your brand and the humanity in your entertainment. And that's when you get back this human capital of passion, because you've demonstrated a commitment to the user.
I agree. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things you've got to remember when you're on any kind of social platform, is that it's a conversation. It's not that you're just putting an output of content. It's actually acknowledging the response and continuing the conversation, because that's where it comes from. It's sharing that story and evolving that together to share that experience. And sometimes people forget that, but that's the key. That's been the key to what I think I've seen of the better, immersive entertainment experiences I've seen here at this market.
It's sort of something I've been hearing a lot for, not just here, but for a while, but it seems to be really intense here at this market, is what can TV people learn from YouTubers? And it always comes down to engagement. You can't just stick your programs on YouTube and hope people will watch them. It's 50% production, 50% engagement. It's listening to people, doing that conversation, that feedback loop, and adapting your content based on that feedback, because that's what YouTubers have been doing from the get-go.
And the Young Turk said that really nicely yesterday. She basically said, if you want an engaged audience, if you want this sort of fidelity from people, you have to be listening from the very beginning and incorporating their input from the very beginning, which is why it's so great that the CBC commissioner was like flat out, if you don't have a social strategy already incorporated in your idea, we can't take it.
From your point of view, Marianne, are TV companies getting active enough? Are they engaged enough yet, or not?
I think the TV industry, in terms of large television companies, it varies. I think they're still focused on orders and numbers and what are the hot trends and trying to figure out who are the best writers and who are the best people to package series around. I think social media becomes incredibly important to the launching of a number of television shows. Certainly the buzz around Game of Thrones when it was recently premiered, the most recent season on HBO, there was all sorts of social media campaigns around that to drive audience. And I ran into Sophie Turner-Lang from B-Sky B yesterday, and she said that they actually did it day and date at the same time in the UK on Sky Atlantic. They had it at 2 o'clock in the morning when it was on at 9 o'clock in the United States. So I didn't ask her how many people were watching it too, but certainly I think people are focusing, people who create quality television shows and get into a fan base, they are definitely leveraging that, and they're looking to communicate with them and develop a communication and a conversation with them that can be really compelling.
That's possibly something Sky wouldn't have done before.
No, or HBO for that matter. I mean, it's just, and HBO also isn't focused on advertising revenue, so it's not like it's Orangina is advertising on HBO. I mean, they're caring about who their subscribers are and that people want to continue to have fidelity to this cable channel. And I think it's interesting for HBO to continue to do this right now, because while they're still a B2B business, i.e. they sell to cable operators, satellite operators, or MVPDs as we call them in the United States, there are people that are still wanting and waiting to see, will HBO ever go direct to consumer? Will that happen? Will they go a Netflix model? And I think for them to dive into social media in a significant way does help them begin to study that, or at least understand who those people are.
They've been doing some great stuff on social media with Game of Thrones in particular, but I was thinking more Sky broadcasting that at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's really catering for the superfans.
Totally. It is all about the superfans. Absolutely.
There's not an... I'm trying to think of a bridge now to your theme, Marianne, but it's I'm struggling. But it is something that we've seen a lot again this week, which is your theme is an explosion of content.
Yes.
Hence the volcano.
And well, it's fascinating that I don't think we've ever seen as much content out there in all sorts of ways. You have the explosion of these MCNs and these YouTube channels. We have maker studios just being sold to Disney for hundreds of millions of dollars. A lot of these people, whether or not it's Vice or maker studios, or a whole roast of other ones, are all catering to this audience of 2.5 billion people under the age of 24, who are, I have a daughter who's 14 years of age, and she qualifies in that demographic. How she consumes content, what she's interested in looking at, it's completely different than anything that I knew growing up, and certainly anything I've sort of even known in my own adulthood, although I do a lot of time shifting and other things myself at this juncture. But they are a totally different generation. And many people are looking at and pointing to the amount of money or spending power that this audience represents. Yet at the same time, we're talking about a business model that is still waiting to happen. My understanding of Maker Studios revenues is that it was just a little over $100 million. That is not a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, or it's not like there's content that's being produced there that is sustainable in a longer-term framework. I mean, yes, you have characters and other things. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see where the business models emerge with that, and where that goes, and what that does to television advertising ultimately. Clearly, this audience will grow up. How will their patterns of consumption change? I don't know. So there's a lot of question marks there. So, but big explosion of content there, but question marks about what that business model is going forward. On the other side, there's an explosion of content in, obviously in formats, but I'd like to talk about scripted series. It's, you know, we have 50 outlets in my country right now that are now looking for scripted dramas. Everybody wants to find the next Mad Men, the next Breaking Bad. So if you go to meet with any of the studios here, or a number of the major entertainment providers, the number of series that they are all producing and looking to market is only increasing, because there is this insatiable demand for scripted series within the US television ecosystem. Yet, at the same time, if you also talk to studio executives, they will tell you that there's not a lot of output deals being done anymore, and series don't always work in all of the various countries. Certainly, HBO has done quite well with their big output deals with the Skies and the UK, Germany, and Italy, where they effectively are running an HBO channel in those countries, only under other names. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to the business models around scripted television going forward. Clearly, many people are very happy about the Netflix money coming into it, and the Amazon money coming into it, above and beyond what they're all doing on the original side. Obviously, they would like to acquire this content for their own platforms. So that is a window. Obviously, a lot of paid television platforms are looking for more in the way of SVOD services themselves. Yet you don't have big output deals being done, and I don't know if those dollars can begin to equate to what once was there. I think it'll be really interesting to see how things begin to change in the business models of doing scripted television. It'll be interesting to watch what happens at the screenings, to what extent stuff gets picked up, to what stuff gets orphaned. It'll be interesting to talk at MIPCOM in October as to where everything is going. So my point there is that, again, lots of content, a lot of good content, but question marks about what the longer-term business models are going to be. So I think, you know, we have this big explosion, but I think there's a lot of explosions of questions as well as to what the business models are going to be going forward, which will have implications.
But you're also suggesting that within 6 months it could be a lot clearer.
No, I don't think anything's going to be clear for several years now. But I think we will begin to see shiftings of different business models and new deal paradigms coming up, and people looking at how to work with windows and change things and do different things in order to make the numbers work. Because at the end of the day, We do have to make the numbers work, I know.
To your point, though, there's something that worries me about where we are, and it has to do with this fact that, you know, the dust has risen. We're just waiting for the dust to settle. I agree with you. I think it's just a question of time before HBO goes online, because Netflix is like poking the crap out of them. Right. And one of the reasons why Netflix was sexy in the first place was because it lent this impression of agnosticity, platform agnosticity. You could find all of your stuff in the same place, and Netflix was starting to get licenses to these great new shows, and now it's producing all its own original content, which is really, really good. So that was also really exciting. The fact that it's producing its own original content and that it spurred other web companies to produce their own original content worries me, because I'm starting to think that in the end, agnosticity was not Netflix's end game. In the end, it really just wants to own the user, and it wants the user more and more on its own content. And Amazon will want this too, and HBO will want this too, and more the internet is going to look a lot like cable does today. And you already have a lot of companies that are out there trying to organize all this internet content in the same way television is organized. For example, Pluto TV is organizing everything by category, like in a really simple sort of lean back way. And then you have Spideo, which organizes all of these MCNs by brand. So you can just toggle from one to the other. And the worry that I have is that we're just going to take that model and move it to the web, and we're going to have the exact same problem that we've always had, which is that people can't watch what they want to with this really, really easy financial system, for example, that they thought they had with Netflix. They're going to have to go back to making decisions about what types of brands to ally themselves with, where they should allocate their money every month, and it's just going to become the same sort of shell game until the next thing comes along.
You think things might become as locked down on the web as they have become on standard TV?
Not necessarily as locked down, I don't think so, but I worry that as companies get bigger and they start concentrating more audience online, they're going to start wanting, you know, those same kinds of perks that cable television had. They're going to want, I mean, it's like the difference between Android and Apple. Like, why can't we have agnosticity between those two platforms? Why does a developer have to make 2 apps for both? It's that kind of thing. Like, they just can't help it. They want to own the people that they have, and they don't want to share. Like, is the worry that I have. And it puts people in the same awkward position of going, well, now I have to remember what brand is allied to, you know, this show, like where I should watch it, and then, you know, and then it just becomes easier to pirate, because then you don't have to remember that kind of stuff.
Well, which is also a big issue for series, because the reality is that even a lot of the large terrestrial broadcasters in Europe are more resistant as well to buying series, because once it's on 1 or 2 episodes, people then figure out how to pirate and download it and watch it themselves. So it is a significant issue.
Yeah, but in the end, streaming is quicker, which is why agnosticity is kind of a better route. It's just that nobody wants to be agnostic for long. Netflix was agnostic for a while. Hulu was kind of playing at being agnostic, but nobody really wants that to be their end game. And I think that's kind of too bad.
What do you think, Omri?
Well, you know, as I told you, I'm also part of this company in Israel called Electric Sheep that exactly took her concern, and they said people don't care about the outlet. They don't care if it's Amazon. You are trying to remember if Breaking Bad, it's AMC, Showtime, Netflix. You don't really care. And what they are doing is taking the content, this explosion of content, and it's now the game of engagement, and they are trying to take the content itself and to put websites that are directed to that. So I'm just giving kind of a route. You will write Breaking Bad, and not in a pirate way. You will get to the Breaking Bad website, and it will open, and you can watch the entire thing. Again, in 6 months from now or in a year from now, we will be smart about what is the actually way that it's going to happen. But I'm not very worried about it. I think that the market will balance itself about it, because it's such a huge thing and everything is possible. But eventually, I think people are more attached to content and to the desire to speak with people tomorrow morning in the coffee area, in the water cooler, to be relevant. And this is the only game that we are playing here, to give relevant content in the right time for those people, to answer that need. So eventually, I guess, the market will balance itself.
Okay, Lisa, what do you think?
At the Digital Summit, there was a really interesting conversation about data and about using big data, like when you go into Netflix and Netflix comes back and says, oh, because we can see you've done these searches, you obviously like this. And when there was a really, really interesting conversation that went around that about how people are trying to use that data to work out what the next big hit is. But there's like, you know, you like Kevin Spacey, you like politics, well, let's go make House of Cards. But one of the most interesting things that the table I was on was talking about was there's essential elements like the storytelling and going back to that personal engagement that we need to consider when we're looking to make what's going to work in certain different markets. And that's... Yeah, and that's interesting because I think a lot of the time, especially when it comes to doing original work, people look at data to justify why this should be the next big hit. But it's also, you can't forget all the other classic storytelling, conversational stuff that we've been talking about on this panel to consider that.
And it's the storytelling that attracts the stars, and it's the stars that attract the audiences. That was something... three of the stars who were here this week, Ray Wise, Kim Cattrall, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, were all saying, I read the script, I just got on board straight away. Ray Wise didn't care that didn't even know that his series was branded entertainment. Maggie Gyllenhaal was going to give up TV because of her kids, and Kim Cattrall hadn't done any TV since Sex and the City. My point is that clearly we've reached a level of storytelling that is attracting these actors and it's attracting them away from cinema. So maybe that's an encouraging trend, Marianne, and what you were saying. This is why all those networks really want to get their scripted fiction shows, because that's what people want, and that's what actors want to do right now.
Absolutely. Well, look at what is in the movies, and if you're a real actor, I don't think you want to be, you know, doing blow-up scenes against green screens and, you know, with robots and other things. I mean, half of the motion pictures that are made every year are these large action-adventure things, and the roles of, you know, the roles that are interesting for actors and actresses that really want to act, they're fewer and far between. So the television has just become a much more attractive medium for all of them.
You were smiling about something.
No, they can always come to Dolphin with the Stars and they can find an appealing role for them.
That was great. I wanted to talk about that too, because we've been talking about Dolphin with the Stars and the Shower, and there have been some pretty wacky formats here at MIPTV this week and at MIP Formats. But what's interesting as well is when you compare that with what's on YouTube, what was at the digital fronts yesterday and today. Mr. Stampy Cat, I don't know if you all know about Mr. Stampy Cat, but he's the second most viewed YouTube channel in the UK, and he's a cat that does tours of the video game Minecraft. And every video he publishes gets about 1 million views. I don't know if that's wackier or stranger for TV people than Dolphins with the Stars.
Makes complete sense for that. I guess it was just Stampy Cat, and now that he has 1 million viewers, he's becoming Mr. Stampy Cat. He's not talking to his old friends again. No, but listen, I'm sitting with, I'll be honest and open here, I'm sitting with an acquisition guy, and I'm pitching him a show. I guess it's not such a great show, but it's got a story telling, a very deep story about the human desire, and I can explain why I think it's important to be on TV and why it's appealing for a massive audience. And he's saying, I'm not sure about that for our audience, and I want to hit him on the head because he just acquired Dolphin with the Stars. I'm saying, seriously? Really? Do we speak the same language? Dolphin with the Stars? Seriously? In a year from now, nobody will remember that show. It is frustrated me because it's a lazy. There are a group of very bad creative ideas here, and I'm very happy to say that. Okay, I will say it. I have a hobby of looking on old copies of Wall Screen from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, on all the shows that's supposed to change the face of television and never been seen again. Those kind of shows. And I had enough of that. I mean,
but my point is, why is a cat walking around Minecraft better?
No, this cat, because it's a great for you to watch it on YouTube. You will never wait to see it on 8 o'clock in the evening with your entire family for an hour, and you will never get. It's a different kind of. It is the same device, but it's a different kind of content.
That's the thing that I think is kind of crazy. That, to your point, James, and to your point also, Omri, there are things that you can find on the internet that are just amazing on the internet, and they go on broadcast TV, and you're just like, I hate these people. Like, what are they doing? Everyone's on drugs. Civilization is destroyed. But I'm sure if like, if Dolphins with the Stars was something that like I randomly found on YouTube, like, you know, me and my friends, like, we'd all be like watching this obsessively and showing it to our friends and going, oh my God, look at this crazy thing. And I think it's also that element of discovery. Like, there are crazy things that online you want to discover, and it becomes this thing that you can kind of talk about, like Trollolo Man. If somebody tried to impose Trollolo onto us from a broadcast perspective, it would be like, what is happening in the universe? Yeah. But it's, you know, I think that people make, without realizing it, we make this sort of subtle distinction between, because in the end, it's kind of awesome that Dolphins with the Stars exists. I'm sorry I'm saying that, but I am. It's sort of awesome that it exists. It's just, it's too bad that it's happening on TV first, because if it was found on the internet first, it would have been like, oh my God, what is this totally insane thing? Because it's true. Like, if I saw like a cat video online, or like a cat wandering around Minecraft on TV, I'd be super pissed. I'd be like, this is what they're spending my money on at that company. So I don't know.
But there's a sort of, there is a wacky balance, isn't there? It's as if Vice has got this wacky balance, right? Because they're now syndicating to HBO the sort of stuff that you would only watch on the internet. And it also reminds me of your figures point, Marianne. I think one of the best quotes of this market was Shane Smith from Vice saying, we're going to be 10 times CNN, 10 times MTV, because we're getting figures in the billions. And they're doing that with content that you would, that is far too edgy for TV. Have they got an edge with that edgy content, maybe?
I definitely do, because what's happened with news is that it's become a lot of screaming heads at one another, certainly in our country, in the United States. It's basically devolved to that. So they are providing a much more interesting perspective on the news, which is very gritty and behind the scenes. And I think it's reflecting a lot of what people want to know is going on in those situations. Yeah. But, you know, will it be fully a replacement? I don't know. I don't know.
But Vice isn't new either. Like, they've spent years and years and years building up an audience, and it's been and
that's a great point.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job at sticking to their brand as they've gotten quite big, you know. And I think, and you know, and the way they started, to your point earlier, was this with the street press magazines and building a following was really true to the kind of audience that was going to support them the whole way, to be on things like HBO and still have their online channel, and still, you know, have their street press, because their audience has kind of grown up with them too.
It's what was another wacky example that we were talking about before?
Oh, slow TV.
Well, there are two. I was thinking of the other one, but yeah, let's talk about slow TV.
Do many people know what slow TV is here in the audience? Okay.
So slow TV is a format that comes out of Norway, where they rig up I think it's a cruiser with lots and lots of cameras, and it's a live feed of what that cruiser sees for 5 days, and and it had the kind of following where a day or two into the broadcast, people would come and, you know, row next to the boat, and people would come and wave at the boat, and it was just this event that went for 5 days, and it was really, really interesting.
There are loads of different examples of it that seems to work particularly well in Norway for some reason, but they just did the first ever slow TV show in France. and it was a guy walking backwards through the streets of Tokyo for 9 hours, but filmed forwards. And what was really interesting about that show is it was a huge trending topic on Twitter, but hardly anyone watched it.
Yeah.
So it's because it's like sort of secondary TV or background music. Is it? Do you think it could really take off, slow TV?
Look, I don't know, but what I think is really interesting about its offering is it gives a really, really different experience to a lot of the TV shows we see at the market. Like it's armchair travelling. It's you know, it's and with so much content explosion going, you know, happening, it is something you probably would talk about at the water cooler. Like, have you seen something that's so different in that way? Yeah.
I wonder in the water cooler discussion, which would be like, have you seen 3 o'clock when the boat moved? I mean, it's because there's not. It's a different kind of watching. It's the same device, it is, but it's a different kind of focusing on the viewing of that. I mean, you can go to the restroom or go outside for your shrink for 2 hours, getting back, nothing really changed. And it's a nice component for old people or for people that lost the remote control, or for if you are ironing and you want to see something that is better than your gray life, or it's something that is actually a very nice experience, but it's completely not related to TV viewing. It's a matter of engagement in a funny way.
Yeah.
It's the lowest possible way of engagement. You are aware of that it's out there, but you don't really need to be focused about it.
But Marianne was saying before, a lot of normal TV is already like that anyway. You don't need to be glued to it all the time.
Right. Yeah, I have this theory about live television numbers in the United States. They keep on saying, well, live TV numbers aren't going down. Well, that's because half of us have our television on as background. You know, in the morning I have on Morning Joe on MSNBC as I'm getting ready to go to work and whatnot. If I'm making dinner at night, I have on a news show in the kitchen. So there's a way that people are keeping those live TV numbers going without really fully engaging.
But on the other side of that, sorry, did I interrupt?
No, it's okay.
Okay. On the other side of that, there's also this aspect of, for example, when we were talking earlier about web series being picked up and going into broadcast and becoming these extended sort of stories, these extended versions of themselves, there's this way in which TV is still considered like the king of where you want to be. You still want to, as a YouTube star, you still kind of want to end up on TV. It's still sort of the holy grail. There are things that I think, and I think that TV is right to have this kind of legitimacy. For us, it's sort of, we have a smart TV. It's sort of a shame to get Game of Thrones on our computers because we want to watch it on the big screen. We want to watch it properly. It's the kind of stuff we want to watch properly. So going back to what we were talking earlier about, like, why does Dolphins with the Stars exist? I think that we have this discrete idea of what deserves to be on TV, even though a lot of the time it's true, it's just ambient viewing, it's just company. But I think that there's something to be done with that. Like, once you've demonstrated sort of your mettle online, this also goes to, you know, how people are constantly telling you the internet is not cannibalizing television, it's actually helping building ratings. There are producers who actually cut up their shows now so that they can put the more clever aspects back online and sort of feed back into their viewership in the evenings. It's absolutely true. These are two symbiotic beings, and it has to do with, we can't forget that our behaviors and our expectations of these two media are very, very different. And they're not necessarily things that are going to go away. We want them to work together because we want both of them in our lives.
But it's no longer as simple as the good, well-produced stuff goes on TV and the sort of cheaply done stuff goes on YouTube. That's not the case anymore.
The lines are blurry.
I just would like to say that we will be taking questions shortly. If you're shy, you can tweet your questions with the MIPTV hashtag, and they'll come up here. So I'll leave you a minute to do that if you want to. Meanwhile, I just wanted to talk about another quite sort of wacky trend or development that happened just on Tuesday. Slow TV for dogs did a deal. So Dog TV did a deal with Discovery. So we've been aware of Dog TV for a while. They're another Israeli company.
Israeli.
But this is the first time, so they've done a deal with Discovery. I talked to their head of content about it. He wasn't super clear on the details, but the fact is, Discovery Communications will be broadcasting content for dogs as a result of this deal. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, you can expect that in the next market there are going to be a lot of acquisition dogs around here looking for content for competing channels for that.
Scouting dogs.
Maybe some cats will start their own channels.
Yeah.
Maybe some.
Will there be dog households that are going to become a new Nielsen rating? I'm just sort of curious about that.
No, but what was it they said to you? They were talking about their viewership in terms of people, and you said, don't you mean dogs? And they were like, no, because a person has to turn the TV on first.
Yeah, has
like
to
you
pay
were
for the
stupid to
subscription.
ask that question.
Yeah. But and he said, but no, we're working on it. We're working on dog payments.
Actually, my grandfather has been barking on the TV for years. It's not the original.
No, but I mean, it's seriously it's not just a silly thing, dog TV. And this deal with Discovery seems to prove it, that it is there for a reason. And the dog TV guy was saying to me, we can prove that dogs who watch dog TV are less stressed, because it's supposed to be for dogs that you leave your dog at home all day and he can watch it, and when you get back home,
He just loves you.
he's a happier dog.
They also said cats really like it as well.
Yeah.
They're shooting for both markets. Yeah. While branding for one.
I wonder when they will have a Netflix for dogs, when the dog could pick what exactly he wants to see whenever he wants to see.
Could have sort of woof recognition.
Yeah.
Or
Exactly. I smell a Connect collabo.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Marianne, you want to say something?
No.
So we can, if you have nothing else to say about dog TV.
No, actually there is something there is something interesting about how television is becoming like the iPhone. Yes, this device you used to do only one thing with it, to watch, the entire family used to watch something on there. And now you're doing so many other stuff with it. It's a nice friend to have when you are cooking. You can just stare at something like the slow TV, or it's a kind of a nice friend for your dog when you are not in the house. So they are using the same device, but for a completely different work, which, I don't know, there are a lot of other opportunities that I guess will be explored over the next few years.
So next at MIPCOM we might get dogs in the shower or something.
Dogs cooking shows, singing
Dolphins
competition.
swimming with dogs.
Dolphins swimming with dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa was talking about hybrid formats before. That's what you meant, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dogs
it's
and
a
dolphins.
Shame. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the dolphin high dives competition. That would be nice.
Okay, I'm not sure if we've got any questions on Twitter. Do we have any questions in the room? Go for it. It's your last chance to ask a speaker a question at MIPTV. No one? Okay.
I think over there.
Over there.
Yes.
Oh yeah, just have a question about ratings. So I don't have a bit of an issue with like the way we do ratings, for example, like in the UK, because I understand the concept and I know it's math and it makes sense, but I'm still not sure it's accurate because I don't think I don't think the sample to start with is correct, for example. But also on the back end of that, like Netflix and Amazon, for example, they've more released the numbers for their ratings. So I just wanted to know about on rating on traditional broadcast and also like online with not even like with the YouTube, but also with the Amazon and the Netflix.
So just for anyone who didn't hear the question, it was about I suppose if I resume your question, what are the most reliable ratings now? Because classic ratings don't seem that representative. Is a YouTube view the same as a traditional viewer? So I suppose the question was what can we go on now as proof of a show's success?
I can give answering this kind of a shot. So ratings are inherently imperfect, right? Because you can't be in people's houses everywhere and sort of see if they're watching TV and if they're like actively watching TV or if they're like ironing or something. And even when ratings are released online, for example, on YouTube, they're also imperfect because YouTube, technically it counts every hit of play as a view, regardless of how long you've watched it. So if you just hit play like 30 times, for YouTube that's like 30 views, thank you very much. And with Netflix, with things like, so I work with a social TV agency, and basically what we look at when we're looking at, for example, the popularity of a show or a show to cover for a client, is we look at how well the show does on the traditional ratings. We look at how well it does in the space, and then we also take a look at the social amplification, like how well it's actually doing in social. Because, for example, a show that happens to have exceptional views might not do that well in social. People have different behaviors depending on what kind of show it is as well. For example, a series people will talk about forever, even when the series isn't on. However, they will not live tweet the series. They will not talk about the series while it's on.
They're concentrating on it.
Exactly. And we were talking about The Voice earlier. Anything reality TV related, people will actively watch while online and discuss it with their friends. So things like that you have to take note of as well. So I think in the end you have to kind of, it's awful to say, but I think you have to eyeball it. You have to look at how it's faring in the traditional ratings in general, and you also have to look at the social amplification. But going deeper into that, you also have to know how to read the social amplification. Like, is it something where if people are super active about it when the show is on, can I make a determination about how well the show is doing? Or is it one of those things like series where they're not necessarily going to be active during the series, but it doesn't mean that the show is not good while it's on? It's not a perfect system.
Yeah, there are strides that are being made in lots of different areas to improve ratings, measurement. Nielsen will argue that they have sample sizes that accurately reflect the audience in terms of how people consume it, and they actually have meters in a sample size of homes that do it, and I believe it works that same way with the BART system in England. Ultimately, I think the MVPD platforms combined with the rating services need to figure out ways to provide more detailed information as to what's actually happening, because at the end of the day, the MVPDs are the ones that really know what people are doing. They know what channels they're going to. They know what's going on in different televisions within the household. They can begin to parse through, you know, if it's my teenage daughter watching certain shows versus me watching certain shows. So and there are different companies that are working at developing more targeting as it relates to television, working between programmers and set-top box companies. So it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue over the coming years. And certainly people who are in the television business are going to want to see measurement get better so that money does not get taken away and go into digital, where there are, as she mentioned, that there are a lot of issues as it relates to internet measurement as well. But YouTube does know what's happening. I mean, they know how much of a video is watched or consumed, and they're able to figure that out, but they're not sharing that information with anybody. Yeah. And God help us. Well, we can only pray that Netflix and Amazon will ultimately give us their information. I think that's going to require a lot of praying.
Okay, well, I think if there are no more questions, we can wrap it up now. So thank you very much to all our fantastic speakers. Thank you very much for coming along to this session, and to MIPTV. You can catch up on all of our live coverage on MIPBlog.com and on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MIPmarkets. And that's it for this edition. Thank you very much.